Well, Ian, it finished 2-2. What were your thoughts on the performance?
I mean, obviously it was not the ideal game when you have a man sent off after 20 minutes in terms of friendly. I mean, it's never ideal in any situation, but least of all in a friendly when you can probably avoid that situation. But I thought we handled it really well. I mean, we conceded directly after. I think we switched off a bit with all the mayhem that went on with the sending off. But then after that, I thought we defended very well. We limited their chances considering we had 10 men. And actually we created a lot of quite good ones in the second half. So I don't think we looked in the second half like we had a man less, but I think it was a really good exercise for us in terms of we wanted to work with off-ball defensive structure, and I think we had to do that really well, especially in the second half, which we did. So, yeah, in the end, it was a good exercise for us.
I've got to ask you about the sending off. What was your view of it, and what was your thought on the actual decision?
I would say that in a normal game, it's a red card. So the referees probably got it right from that perspective. The only thing I'd say is that nobody here, I spoke with Neil and I spoke with, we're all stood on the sideline saying we understand the ref's got a decision, but a bit of common sense would say in a friendly after 20 minutes a yellow would suffice there really, just so that everybody can get out what they need. I understand the refs being watched, but even the people watching the refs would understand context. So a bit disappointing really, but at the end of the day, I said in the changing rooms, it's not the referee's fault. We're down to 10 men because of our fault, our mistake. We got countered and made a mistake, and in a normal game we'd have to deal with that. So for us, it's a good exercise in how to play with 10 men, which maybe at some point during the season we're likely to do.
I saw you as you and Neil were walking down the tunnel with the referee. What were you saying to him there?
I think we were just saying that common sense can prevail sometimes. That Neil was very vocal that he didn't want to play a sent off because they don't want to have to play against 10 men. We didn't really want to have to play with 10 men, so we kind of all agreed on the side, look, this doesn't make sense, but once the ref's done it, he's done it. But then my point to the ref was there was 3 or 4 fouls on Cal Roberts later on that in a normal game would be a yellow, but he doesn't give them, and when I asked the fourth official why, he says because it's a friendly, and I say, well, either the rules apply that way or they don't. So either we referee it like a National League game or we don't. But there's no point in focusing too much on that. In a normal game it would be a red card, so from that perspective we should have dealt with that situation better, but I thought after that with 10 men for 70 minutes we did really well.
What did you learn specifically about your team today?
I definitely think we showed a bit of character. In any situation, friendly or not, with 10 men you have to be able to do that, you have to work for each other, but I also think we showed that if we're brave with the ball, even with 10 men we can play through, and we created some really good chances, and I think you saw we had players coming in off the bench and affecting it in a really positive way. So yeah, in the end it probably wasn't how we saw this one mapping out, but we had to adapt, and I thought we did that okay.
I was going to say you showed tremendous spirit, didn't you, in the second half? I know it's a friendly, but
yeah,
it's always a good sign.
Yeah, and I think that's going to carry us through. Sometimes you go through kind of stagnant friendlies, and even last game before, you don't want to give too much away. You play a team from your division, it's a little bit cagey. Suddenly we were 2-0 down with 10 men and we had to show a bit of character. So in many ways we can take a lot of things with us from that.
Ruben Rodriguez came on in the second half. I know he's had a bit of a patchy pre-season in terms of minutes. How close is he, do you think, is to starting next weekend?
Off the back of today, I thought he looked good. So we'll see how he recovers, really. But I thought his impact in the second half was excellent. So hopefully, when we get in next week, he's had a positive reaction from that, and he can push for a start then.
And judging by the defending today, what can you do better?
I thought the first one, obviously the counter-attack, we maybe could have had a foul just before the counter-attack, but we were left, Ed left the middle to go and join the attack, and we didn't fill in, so we were left a little bit exposed on a counter-attack, so managing that a little bit better. Second goal's a set piece, so and I think we were a bit disjointed with losing Connell there, the man in the middle. But I felt like after that we kind of limited a lot of their chances came from a couple of our mistakes when we were building up, but in general we were fairly secure in the second half defensively with a man less, so I think we could take a lot of things from that.
Jim O'Brien came on and was brilliant.
Yeah.
In the time that he had on the pitch. How close is he to giving you a problem for the selection on the first day of the season?
Gives me a problem every day, and certainly he gives me a problem for next week, because he's excellent football player and if you've got 10 men, you want somebody like Jim on the pitch, because the volume of energy he brought to the team, and the running and the way he opened things up was excellent. So yeah, I felt there was a lot of good performances today, and many of them now are pushing for that start against Barnet.
Have you already formulated in your mind the team that you'll play against Barnet this week, or will it just depend on how training goes?
No, it depends on, now we really look specifically at Barnet, starting now really. And yeah, I'll use the whole week to look at different variations, different possibilities, and nothing's decided. I very rarely decide a team early in a week, so I like to see how it goes in training, and like to see the variations and go from there.
Now, matters off the field. I understand that the league has taken a decision regarding substitutes next season. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, they announced on Thursday, I think it was, that they're going to remain with 5 subs, which is a very strange decision. I was on the managers' meeting with every manager from our league, and not one manager opposed 7 subs. Everybody was in support that spoke up. I think sometimes some of the clubs, in fact I know some of the clubs are taking decisions above the managers' heads about subs. Ones that want 7 are only getting 5, and I think that's certain clubs protecting their own interests. But I think if anybody wants to make this a better quality league, a more professional league, with better games on a consistent basis, you get more selection and more subs, and you don't force coaches to choose between a 5th outfield and a goalkeeper, which now we're going to have to do. Speaking with Neil here today, he won't have a keeper on the bench, I won't have a keeper on the bench, and it looks Mickey Mouse when an outfield player has to go into the goals. So it's a shame. You see the Premier League have increased to 9, yet we can't get past 5, so they didn't give a rationale or a decent reason why, but so it's a bit frustrating, to be honest. So
let me get this straight. So all the managers were in favour of 7 subs?
Not every manager spoke up, but every manager that did was in favour of it, including the league below. When they asked if anybody had any objections around it, not one manager spoke up surrounding an objection around 7 subs. Yet 7 teams, I think, voted against it, and we know that some of those managers that were pro 7 subs, their clubs voted against it. So it's a very, very it was a very strange situation, and they haven't come with a genuine good reason why we should stay with 5.
Yeah, how disappointing is that as for a manager like yourself, and obviously Neil and all the other ones who want to make the league more professional and more up to the standard of the Football League?
I think we want to make the league more professional. We want to have more competition out on the pitch. You can just see we play Torquay, and then we get 1 day break, and then we play Wrexham, so 2 games in 3 days, and they want to restrict the amount of possible changes that we have. There's no logic to it. So yeah, I think for many of us coaches, we'd like to see a more professional setup, but seems like there's still restraints on that.
I've got to ask you about some of the business that's been done this summer. The latest was Shamanga to Chesterfield in midweek. What's your verdict on the money that's been thrown around the league this year?
There's a lot. There's a lot of clubs that are obviously investing very, very heavily in players. I think that we've been quite strategic in our decisions. I think that we've been quite balanced in the way in which we've gone about it in the market, and I think that's our strategy. I think we have a long-term, responsible strategy that we don't drop crazy money. I think we've seen clubs, and even ourselves many years ago, have probably been guilty of that, and it doesn't always have happy endings. So for me, it's mainly about being way more strategic, patient, and work with coaching young players and develop something that's going to be a better long-term strategy for the club. But for some, they've dropped big sums. I think that puts more pressure on them. But that's fine with us. We've got our way, and we're happy with that.
Have you been surprised by the amount of money that's been thrown around in the National League this season? Because it seems to me there's more money in it this year than League Two, or even probably some of the teams that are in League One.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, a little bit surprised, because with the kind of the backdrop of COVID, you think that some teams without having a fan in the ground for a year are maybe struggling. But each to their own, and some clubs are extremely well financed, and their method is to go for it by spending a lot. But at the end of the day, one team goes up automatically, so they all can't, and that will leave some short. And I think our strategy is a good one. You see from Sutton last year that it wasn't about the money that was spent, it was more about the culture and the way of playing and believing in that. So I think we take that route.
And how happy are you with the business that you've done this summer?
Really happy, yeah. I think the players have come in. I think you can see the kind of players that we've brought in. It's generally younger players with a massive capacity to develop that can be great assets for the football club long term. Some of them, of course, have got still work to do to get where they want, but I think we have now a young, hungry squad leading into the season.
And what's the verdict with the loan market? Because that's an area that you haven't exploited, of course, but you do have 5 available to bring in. Is that something that you could look to do in the future?
I think initially we want to have our own players that we develop for our own purpose, and then should we pick up injuries and need emergency players, then obviously we can reach out into the loan market and look at that. We know that's there. We've got good connections with many other clubs, and we'll reach out if we think that we need something once we get into the season. So I think that's always open for us.
And obviously, finally, you advertised for a set-piece coach, first-team coach. Is there any closer to that being? Is that closer to being appointed?
Yeah, we've worked with that, and I think we'll have that sorted by early next week, and somebody in place that can begin that process. We're kind of working with the set pieces, restarts, and have a real key focus on that because it's certainly an area that we want to pay more attention to.
Yeah, it was a strange job advert. I mean, you see it, don't you? You see first team coach, but then you read the job description, and it was something like, focusing on free kicks, set pieces, etc. Is that both offensively and defensively? Yeah,
it's all restarts, throw-ins, and everything. I mean, that's going to be one area, but also they're going to assist. Obviously, with Jimmy Redfern leaving to go to Walsall, that's a gap that's opened up in terms of some of the analytics that we're doing, so it's somebody that can support with that, support on the pitch, support the set plays. So yeah, it was quite a specific role, but we feel it's something that can bring something extra to the coaching team.